guys, greetings. It's Jurgis. Hopefully you're doing well. We're going to continue on with letter 15, How the Saints Hear Our Prayers, from the writings of St.Theophan the Recluse regarding the spiritual life. I am very glad you liked what I said about that element. Accept it, imprint it in your mind more firmly, and always keep it in your thought. You will see how it will help you in everything, how many things it explains, and how much comfort it gives. You have probably heard the question as to how the saints hear our prayers, and maybe you yourself have asked the same thing. In answer to this, there are explanations. But the question still remains a question. In my own opinion, by supposing the existence of an element such as I described, how can the saints not hear our prayers? Do you know how the electric telegraph works? In St. Petersburg, for example, they start up a particular piece of equipment. In the same instant, that action in St. Petersburg is reflected in a similar piece of equipment in Moscow, and the very same motion occurs. Why does it happen like this? Because the equipment is of the same type, and because a wire connecting them is fitted to them. The action of the telegraph is like our prayer. We, along with the saints, are like two pieces of the same kind of equipment, and the medium in which the saints dwell and with which our souls are surrounded, that is the wire. When true prayer, that is, sincere prayer, moves in the soul, then that prayer, by means of the actions of the element upon it, flies as if on a beam of light to the saints, and tells them what we want and what we are praying about. There is no gap between the time we make our prayer and when it is heard. The only necessity is that it come from our heart. It is our telegraphic line to heaven. The very same prayers which are not from our heart, but which come only from our head and tongue, do not produce a ray that rises to heaven. And they are not audible there. Those are not even prayers, but only prayer-like modes. Maybe you've experienced proof of what has been said without even noticing it. You write how you prayed fervently and that you calmed down immediately after receiving the inner assurance that you would be delivered from what was troubling you. And then, in fact, this came about. It turns out then that my comparison with the telegraph of heartfelt prayer rising up invisibly to heaven through the element is accurate. From your heart came a bolt or ray to heaven. Along that same path, or along a similar one, there came a ray from heaven in answer to what you needed. That is what always happens with all prayers that come from the heart. The ability to pray in such a manner does not always come about immediately, but the hearing of it does. Do not be smug about what happened. May the Lord grant that it happen for you more often. Remember how you prayed at that moment, and try always to pray like that, from the heart, not just uttering something with the tongue and thinking something with the mind. If you will do it this way, then you will have a working solution to the question of how one is to be in order to live in the Spirit. For such prayer is the life of the Spirit. Here the Spirit dwells in God and unites with Him, and in this is the entire force of its life. Know then that the soul lives only when it prays in such a way as you prayed at that time. When there is no such prayer, it means that the soul has stopped, if it has not become completely deadened. I will not hide from the fact that even though you were able to pray that way once, you will hardly be able to pray like that all the time. God grants such kinds of prayers, or the guardian angel stimulates it. It comes and goes. It does not follow from this, however, that we are permitted to abandon our labor of prayer. Prayer comes to someone who labors at it, but it will not come to anyone who does not work at it. We see that the Holy Fathers labored a great deal at prayer, and by these very labors kindled within themselves a prayerful spirit. That is how they reach this prayerful spirit, the image of which they have left us in their writings. Everything said by them on this subject comprises a science of prayer, which is the science of sciences. The time is coming when we will go over it, but for now I have touched upon it only in passing. I would also add that there is nothing more important than prayer. Therefore, it is necessary to labor in it most diligently, and more than anything else. May the Lord grant you diligence in such labor. Your humble thoughts and feelings about yourselves are angelic feelings. How perfect and light are the angels. But they are also humble, more humble than any person. A humble soul is always bright. The darkening of the soul begins when it begins to think about itself a lot, for such a thing is of the dark forces. May God grant that you never lose such feelings, so that you may always be in the light. Once again, we have strayed from our question. Just be patient a little longer.